and welcome to this video. I am planning to use this video as a means of explaining the parts of the planning and designing. Some of us are having some misconceptions where some parts of the lab is concerned, and so I'm going to use it. Because it is a video, you have the opportunity of pausing the video, making notes where possible, and if you have where necessary, and if you have any questions, you can in the WhatsApp group that we have. All right. So using an example to make the understanding of the parts of the lab easier. All right. The first part of the lab is the problem statement, and the problem statement is usually given to you by the teacher. So I am the one who will give you the problem statements as I have done before. All right. So basically what the problem statement is a scenario that is expressing the concept to be tested. Now the example that I'm going to use in the explanation is a scenario where you want to determine which brand of toothpaste cleans your teeth best. All right, so this is the scenario that we're working with. And the two brands of toothpaste that we have would be the Colgate and also the Crest. So these are the two brands, and the scenario would be given to you, and then you are going to make an hypothesis based on the scenario. Now, a hypothesis basically is just a statement that is made which tells your position on the concept to be tested. So you are guessing which product would be best in this case or better in this case. So since we are testing whether the Crest or the Colgate toothpaste has a better cleaning effect on your teeth, your hypothesis could be the Crest will have a better cleaning effect on the teeth, or the Colgate brand cleans teeth better. All right. The next part of the lab would be the aim. Now, the aim of the lab is just telling you what the purpose of the lab is. I have not seen much mistakes with the aim of the lab, and so there's not much that I need to say here. So what you just need to remember is that just as how you write the aim for the other labs that we have done so far is the same way you're writing the aim. So the aim of this experiment could be to determine whether Crest toothpaste has a better cleaning effect than the Colgate brand, right? So that is an example of how your aim could sound. The next part of your lab would be your materials and apparatus, and these would be the things that you are going to use to carry out the experiment. So in this experiment that we are thinking about, that we are using now, you would definitely have to use the Crest toothpaste. You definitely have to have the Colgate toothpaste. You have to have your toothbrush. All right. You have to have water. Right. So these are some of the things that you would need. So for your materials and apparatus, you must list all of the materials that you are going to use to carry out the experiment, everything that you would need, especially the major ones. The next part of your experiment would be your method, and this must be written in present or future tense, as you may already know. One problem I am having with the method for some persons is that some of you are not sequencing the method properly. So what I want you to do for me is to sit down, read over the method after you have written it, and try imagine yourself going through the whole process. Because when you imagine yourself going through the process, then you will realize what you missed out. All right. So the method that we could use in the case of the toothpaste that we are testing could be to use each of the toothpaste, like you're going to use one toothpaste for 1 week and the other toothpaste for the other week. All right. So maybe you could do something like that for 1 month or the other month, or you could use two persons. One person you could use and give them the Colgate toothpaste, and the other person you could give them the Crest toothpaste and allow them to use it for a set period of time for the same amount of time. All right. So for example, so you will write up that method. All right. And so when you write up that method, it should be in present tense, as was said before, or future tense, and it must be sequenced properly. So things that you would include in the method would be, you have to include the name of the toothpaste, You have to also include how many times the person will brush per day, and you also have to include for how long the person will brush per day. You'll have to also include things like will the person use a mouthwash, all right? So if the person is going to use a mouthwash, you cannot just allow one person to use the mouthwash, but you have to allow both persons to use the mouthwash, or none of them at all would use the mouthwash. So when you are thinking about your method or carrying out the experiment, I want you to make sure that you are for the two parts of the experiment, you must be doing the same thing. Only one thing must be changed. Before we go into the variables, let me go into the expected results. Now, the expected results would basically be what you think will happen in the experiment. Those questions that I write on the screen, will it support your hypothesis? That is what you are going to write. So I could say, because my hypothesis was that the Colgate toothpaste has a better cleaning effect. Now, I would expect that at the end of the experiment, the Colgate toothpaste would have a better cleaning effect upon whomever uses it. And how do I know this? The teeth will be cleaner, the breath will be fresher. And so if this is so, then my hypothesis is correct or is supported. So I like when you write your expected result, at the end of it, you write whether this supports your hypothesis or not. Then you have your variables. There are three types of variables. You have your controlled, manipulated, and your responding variable. Your controlled variable is the component that is constant. So what would be constant in the experiment that we're talking about could be something like the amount of time that each person would brush their teeth. That's like the amount of times per day, or the amount of toothpaste used. So that would be constant. All right. Throughout, and also what could be constant is that both of them rinse with water, or both rinse with the same mouthwash. Then you have the manipulated variable. The manipulated variable is the component in the experiment that you are going to change. So in this case, in this experiment, what you would change would be your Colgate toothpaste and your Crest toothpaste. So those would be the brands. So the brands of toothpaste would be the manipulated variable. All right. Then you have your responding variable. Your responding variable is how the experiment is affected. How is this thing affected? Because I changed my manipulated variable. So when I change the brands of toothpaste, what are the changes that result from this? So what could result is fresher breath during the day for the persons who use it, or whiter teeth, cleaner teeth, that is what we are testing for. So that is what your responding variable would be. Then you have your assumptions, possible sources of errors. Now, for some experiments, it is easier to distinguish between your assumptions and your possible sources of errors. But for other experiments, it is not so easy to distinguish between them. And so what I encourage you to do is to combine them and to have one collective heading as your assumptions or possible sources of error when you realize that you have an issue with distinguishing between both of them in that given experiment. And these would just be the things that occurred during the experiment that would affect the final result of the experiment. All right, so this will alter it. So in the situation that we are working with the cleaner teeth, what one possible source of error could be that one person brushes their teeth twice and the other one brushes their teeth 3 times per day. Now, this would be a source of error because it's going to affect the results at the end of the day. So this would be an example. Another example of a source of error could be one person after they brush, so both brush 2 times per day, but one rinses with water while the other one rinses with mouthwash. So that is another possible source of error. So it's things that can go wrong. And then now we have our precautions. Our precautions would be the corrective measures put in place. So the corrective measure to put in place would be to instruct them to brush their teeth only 2 times per day. So set time. So the teeth is only to be brushed at 7 o'clock in the mornings and also at 7 o'clock in the evening. So the teeth should not be brushed any time otherwise from those. Understand? So this is basically what the lab is made up of. These are the parts of the lab. And I hope that after this video, you would have a better understanding of how to actually differentiate between the parts of the lab